I'm your host, Chris Bogue, and this is my show on LinkedIn Live where I have conversations with cool people who will help you work more creatively. Today, my guest is Marcus Chan. Marcus, welcome to the show. Please say hello to my audience and let them know where they can find you.
Hey, what's up, Chris? Oh, well, first, I'm pumped to be here. I've never been on a show where we start off with an amazing solo like this, so that was incredible, first off.
Oh, thank
So
you.
I'm pumped to be here. You can find me easily on LinkedIn by looking at Marcus Chan or on YouTube or my website, bentleyconsulting.com, but I'm pumped to have a conversation today.
Excellent. Yeah. Marcus Chan is a sales trainer. He's an author. He's a content creator and just a generally great guy. We're going to be going deep on sales and mindset and entrepreneurship. But before we do, I'm going to introduce myself. So, hello, everybody. My name is Chris Bogue. I am a content creator. I am a coach, an entrepreneur, and a sketch comedian. And I coach people to create mercifully short video content that drives revenue. Sometimes that content is prospecting videos for sales. Sometimes that is content for social media, for your website. But it is all mercifully short, and it is all designed to drive revenue. So if you are watching this live today, go ahead and jump into the comments. Marcus and I want to hear from you. The show is called No Excuses. So we're going to talk about what it takes to go hard when you want to give up. And as always, if you're interested in me, go ahead and ring my bell. So as I mentioned, I am a content creator. I put new content out there on LinkedIn and YouTube all the time. Subscribe to Chris Bogue online. Click the little bell so you never miss an update from me. And with that established, we're going to jump right into it. So Marcus, I'm having you here because I admire your sales ability. I've actually purchased and read your book, Six Figure Sales Secrets. And I got to ask you, for the sake of my audience, is sales easy?
Well, I would say it's simple, but it's not easy. I mean, I think initially, whenever I think about, I remember when I first got into sales, I thought I'd be pretty good at it simply because I was like, well, I grew up working pretty hard, and I heard to be in B2B sales, you have to work pretty hard. And I felt like I was pretty good with people, especially since I worked in like more retail environments, working in restaurants, working with just regular people. I'm like, I'm pretty good with that. But when I actually got into like B2B sales, I realized how quickly, how hard it was, in all the different nuances. And I realized that sales, even though it can be one of the highest paying jobs in the world, it could be one of the lowest paying jobs in the world if you're not very good at what you do. And I realized that very, very quickly. And it becomes basically, it could become a death by 1,000 paper cuts if you don't know what you do. So long answer short, yeah, sales is pretty hard. It's simple, but it's hard.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. So we're going to talk a little bit about growing up. You mentioned in your book a lot of the struggles that you went through in sales, and gotta say, it was the exact opposite of the struggles I had. So neither of us were brought up wealthy, so we have that in common.
Mhm.
For me, social skills were always easy for me. I was
Mhm.
always the kid who was willing to talk. I was a bold kid. I had no problem talking to strangers. That remains one of my best sales qualities to this day. What took me a long time to learn is that having an outgoing personality is not the same as having sales skills.
It's
And
true.
if you think they're the same thing, you're going to be in trouble, because just because people like talking to you does not mean they're going to sign $1 million contract with you. You
That's
know,
true.
and I was a kid. I was a theater kid. And I excelled in school. I did well in school. I was in the gifted program. Growing up, it was always very easy for me to talk, to write, to get A's in school. And it was a real blow to my ego when I started doing sales, and that did not immediately translate to me hitting and exceeding my quota. While people who were not straight A students, who were not the kinds of writers and speakers that I was, were out there smashing their quota and making, twice as much money as me. So I want you to just take my audience for a minute through what it was like growing up for you, and what were your skills like, and what were your struggles like before you ever got into sales.
Yeah, 100%. So we can kind of go back in time a little bit, right? So I wish I could say, I was like that kid who was young, who was really talented, really skilled, who had this natural gift of gab, who was just whatever he said, people just would do whatever he wanted to do. I didn't have those skills. In fact, I didn't start speaking till I was 4 years old. So even at that point, growing up, being young, everyone thought there's something wrong with me. There's something wrong with them. I was, quote unquote, special, right? And even when I started speaking at 4 years old, I had a major speech impediment, and I was blurring English and Mandarin Chinese together. So people really struggled to even understand me. So when I got to like grade school age, they actually put me through special like speech impediment classes, special classes. I remember even like in first, second grade, my parents were like, hey, let's just have them test for the talented and gifted program, the tag program. And obviously I did not get into that.
Mhm.
And early on, just when you're young and you look different. I was the only Asian kid in my class. It's a very predominantly white town. You sound different. You can barely speak. You can't really speak well. I was the butt of a lot of jokes. I didn't have very many friends. I struggled socially. I struggled to even communicate. I struggled to really do anything. And it felt like everything I did was way harder than everyone else. Now, eventually I was able to start, taking speech classes, and that helped me quite a bit. Over time, though, I still grew up very insecure. I lacked confidence, and that stemmed all the way through, elementary school, through even like middle school. In middle school, we started seeing like a little bit of a turning point, right? And there were some things that kind of have helped me over time in that time frame, because it was so hard for me, especially early on, to even like be okay at school, to get okay grades, and to try to do my homework okay. I had to really work hard. I like work harder than everyone else. Now that work ethic came because we grew up really poor. So I grew up working in my parents' restaurant starting at the age of 5. So I was used to just like putting in the hours early on. So like learning how to speak properly. I was used to practicing, verbalizing, speaking, reading, writing, trying to improve my skills. Right. Even I remember like I was trying to pick up sports. I was terrible at every sport. So some kids I find like it's like, hey, if they're pretty good at academics, maybe they're not good at sports or vice versa. I wasn't really good at anything. And I remember even trying to like my parents were like, well, maybe he'll be good at swimming. I remember even swim class, going to swim class and failing I was able to pass most of the early classes until I got to intermediate classes. So I kept failing intermediate classes. So by the time I was like 8 or 9, most of the kids in my class were like 6 years old. And it took me like 4 years of that class to finally pass it by the time I was 9. So like I was used to this like constant failure, trying to redo it. And whether I want to do it or not, my parents made me do it. So it kind of forced me to do it. Now, this developed some skills, I think, over time, which is like, okay, how to persevere, how to do hard things. I think it really started to serve me. But again, socially, very awkward. Now, I think you can appreciate this. In middle school, I got really into street magic. All right. So, like David Blaine, like performed, it was something amazing where I saw him like, wow, he has this amazing ability to walk up to complete strangers, which I was not able to do, and completely blow their minds with some simple magic. And I'm like, what if I could do that? I want to be like that person. So I in middle school, like 7th grade, I started getting to really into magic, like getting books. And I would literally, because of that hard work perseverance prior, I would practice over and over in the mirror, practicing every move. I would write the pattern, I would practice the scripting, and I would just practice to the point where I felt really good. So I could kind of show friends and family, and that built my confidence a little bit. So then now I started showing my friends at school. So I started to some friends. And what was interesting was when I showed some friends, of course, they'd be like, oh, it's incredible. And crowds of people started surrounding me, making me very uncomfortable. It forced me out of my comfort zone. But then suddenly I learned how to engage a crowd of people and to like tell stories and start like, doing magic, etc. So that kind of helped me over time. But that's kind of my journey early on as a kid, where it didn't come easy to me. I wasn't
Mhm.
skilled at a lot of things, but I had to work really hard at a lot of things to even be okay at most things. Eventually to the point where, while I got into B2B sales, I do have conversations with people because of the jobs I had, the retail jobs and that type of stuff. But then when I got to B2B sales, I realized hard work by itself, being able to have conversations with other people is only just a few of the skills that you need to be skilled at sales.
Yeah. So there's a lot of things you said that I kind of want to dig into a little bit deeper there. But if anybody at home doesn't do B2B sales, let me just soothe you for a moment by letting you know B2B sales isn't even good at B2B sales, right? So you go to a startup, there's a lot of glamorous romanticizing of startup life. Even when it's going well, these sales processes are designed with like 1/3 of the team to always be cut. They've already factored failure into the process, right? And when you see somebody who's a very confident salesperson, that doesn't mean that they're never losing. It actually means the opposite. It means they are losing much more often than you are. And that's why they're able to win more. If you're never losing, it's because you're not trying. And it is a very normal thing to want to give up when you are losing. And, as somebody who, again, I grew up and I picked up a lot of these skills before my classmates did. And it's actually a classic tortoise and the hare problem where you get ahead of the race early on and then you get lazy. And all of a sudden you look around and all these other people that you thought you were better and smarter and more talented than are ahead of you. And you never learned to work that the way they did. And yeah, you ended up sleeping and losing a race that you could have won. Whereas I think once you learn how to start at zero and get better, like that's a crucial part of the process. And like, now I've learned and like I've started my own business. We can get deeper into that. You can really kid yourself when you work at a company and be like, oh, my stupid boss. Oh, this stupid email marketing program scaring off all our leads. Oh, this dumb marketing. It's a lot different when it's all you and there is no one there to blame but yourself. And it's like, you thought you hated your boss, like rubbing your failing numbers in. Now you got to be both that guy and you got to be able to identify and call out and fix your failures, and you're the guy who has to deliver. It's very overwhelming, and it's not like a video game. I think in video games, like I love video games because level 1 is always designed to be achievable, right? That's like a rule of designing video games. First level is always easy. First level basically teaches you how to play the game. They're never going to throw you into a situation that's too difficult for you to figure out. Sales is not like that. You jump in, oftentimes they throw you in like the worst territory where you've got the lowest chance of success. You've got no coaching, you've got no playbooks. You just got to start going out there and selling, and like it doesn't work. So I'm going to read you a quote from your book, and I'm going to see how you square this with the mindset of improving, right? Because there was one thing that jumped out of your book where I don't know if I 100% agree with it, Marcus. And it's this line about mindset. And you said that in order for someone to be successful, they have to have a mindset that says, quote, my solution is a no-brainer. I have absolute belief that my solution is the best. I have the only cure to solve their ailment. Maybe or no are not options. I cannot comprehend why they would not say yes today. So on the one hand, as a guy who's had a lot of sales jobs, as a guy who started his own business probably before he was ready, I'm like, oh yeah, you know what? You kind of need delusional confidence if you're going to make it here, because the odds are going to be stacked against you and you have to not let that get you down. On the other hand, arrogance can be a real problem with salespeople, with entrepreneurs, with anybody, with humanity. Ego can be a deadly thing. And I find sometimes you can oversell yourself on how good your solution is. And that can lean into problems too. So tell me why you put this quote in there and how you square that beginner's mindset with this mindset of overall confidence. You will not accept anything other than your solution is the best.
So first of all, I love you brought this specific quote up, right? Because I know also it rubs some people the wrong way, which I absolutely love. Because at the very core of anything, okay, and by the way, arrogance is never good in any situation. So there's a difference between arrogance versus confidence. There's a difference between having an ego versus being confident in your solution. But when I think about at the very basis of anything that we do is the concept of having a belief, right? And beliefs can either be low or they can be high, okay? And if you have a low belief in anything, As a byproduct, the actions you take are also going to be low. They're directly correlated. So, for example, if you are trying to learn how to ride a bike for the first time and you didn't believe, like if you fell off when you first got on, if you believe like you'll never learn how to ride a bike, you're not going to take the action to do it. Okay. Now, if you have really high belief in anything, as a result, you're going to take high action. You're going to do more things. You're going to do what's going to be hard. All right. And this, again, this is like just like anything else. If you believe, even if you fall off your bike, that you eventually will figure it out, you'll keep getting back on the bike, and eventually you're going to learn how to ride a bike. And that leads to the third connection, which is the result in success. So if you have high belief, you have high action, it will lead eventually to high results. This is for anything you do in your life, right? For example, if you learn to play clarinet for the first time, you're going to be terrible the first time. But if you believe by practicing certain things, if you have high belief, then you'll have high action, and then you'll have high result. You can keep doing it. If you believe in specific religions, as a result, you will do the things as part of that religion, and eventually you'll have success in your religion, right? So this is for anything in life. And this ties right back to that exact same principle of having that pure belief that you have the cure to their ailment, that you have the best solution in the world. Yes, it potentially may be delusional, if you will, but what happens is when you truly believe you can really help somebody, what does that actually mean now? That means you'll probably do some of the hard things you wouldn't normally do. You're going to do outreach when you don't feel like it. If you believe you can actually help them, you can do hard things. So just like if I'm a doctor and I know you are deathly sick, if I know I have the cure to your ailment and I care about you, Chris, even if Chris says no, I'm going to take the time to uncover what's really on his mind and see if I can influence him in the right way to see the better path. All right. And if I truly believe my solution is the absolute best, can truly impact and help this prospect and their business, it's my duty to actually reach out and to help them, to, if they have objections, to do my best to help influence them in an ethical way to see the better way of doing things. And only when you have a high level of belief can you take those actions. But if you don't have the belief, then you're going to say, well, our product's not that good anyways. I guess there's better people out there. They give you an objection. Oh, you're too expensive. You're like, oh, you're probably right. And you'll actually fold because your belief is not strong enough.
So the counter I would have to that is, and maybe you've seen this with some of the salespeople you've trained, I have run into a problem throughout my life where I come in hot. You put me on the sales team, I'm that guy. I'm like setting meetings, I'm closing right because I don't know anything about the product yet. And I'm able to stay focused on their problem. I'm able to stay in that consultative role because I literally don't know the answers to their questions. And then I become the pro. And this is also why in my training, anytime anyone focuses too much on their competitors, I'm like, no. You might learn something you didn't want to know, you know? And to me, it was like, I had never started my own business before. My parents were not, business owners and stuff. I just went out there and I was like, what do sales trainers charge? All right. And I started winning like 5-figure consulting contracts. I had never asked for that much money. And then over time, it's like, did you know that this person's been doing it for 10 years and they don't charge as much money as you? Did you know that this person charges that and they do this and that? And the more I learned about other people, the more I'm like, oh my gosh. And it's like the same thing with when I would sell a SaaS product. I would have nothing but confidence. And then they'd be like, you know what? This little feature, the FCC is looking at that and they're going to lose that. And it's like, I would get focused on all these little details and I would lose confidence in the sale. So
your belief shifted.
How do you deal with reps who know too much? How do you know when they get too much they've read too much of the criticism. They've read too many of the negative reviews on G2. They've taken that feedback to heart. And now they've internalized that the solution they're selling is not as good as they thought it was. What do you recommend they do in a situation like that?
Fantastic question. So this is actually why belief and confidence I see as like a bank account. It needs constant deposits in it. Otherwise, the withdrawals are too much. And everything you do either deposits or withdraws from it. And if we're not, and nothing stays stagnant, by the way. It doesn't say equal. It either goes down every day or goes up every day. Right. Yeah. So this is actually why it's really key as a sales professional is you have to constantly train your mind to see the greatness in the solution. Right. So I'll give you a really, really simple example. I did this with my sales team, right? Because as a rep, I fell into this trap and no one helped me out of it. They just said, just suck it up. It's still better than everything else. Everyone's got problems, which is true. I understand that. But I'm like, it didn't help my confidence.
Yeah.
So what did I start doing, especially with myself and also down the road as a leader, was I started to brainwash myself each week by literally rereading case studies, rewatching, interviews with customers, like making sure I found the wins in the conversations. And this is really important. If you're running a sales team, like even my sales team now, every week, what do? We review wins from the prior week from our clients.
Yeah, you celebrate the wins.
100%. So this is like, because reality is there's gonna be complaints, there will be issues, there will be support tickets. That's normal. Like you literally cannot make everybody happy, but you can show consistently the success of when you control the focus. That's what happens. Like the saying goes, what you focus on expands. If you focus on the negative, that's what expands. If you focus on the positive, that's what expands. So if you think about this, kind of like if you just keep reading the news, you think your world's gonna fall apart. But the truth is, the majority of people who read the news, most of the time, the stuff they're reading about doesn't have that much impact to their actual daily life. It's
True.
just a reality.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they read it anyways, and they're like, "Oh, the sky's falling." They're like Chicken Little. So this is actually why I don't even read the news. Like this is why even with social media, I block all my feeds. I don't even go down the feed, because what I'm doing is I'm controlling the narrative in my mind. Like at the end of the day, the only thing you can control are your attitude and your actions. So if you focus on what you can't control, this is how you start shifting your paradigm of what you actually perceive. And how you perceive things determines the actions you're going to take. If you don't know how to change your perception of things, then you'll become stuck to what people are trying to push upon you.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that. And I would say to anybody out there at home right now who isn't putting themselves out there at the level that they want to put themselves out there, some moron is, right?
Yeah,
I
true.
go through life, I meet all these brilliant, talented, intelligent, helpful, wonderful people who think they're nothing. And I meet absolute morons who love themselves and who are out there doing pretty okay for themselves. So my thinking is like, hey, either you advocate for yourself or someone's going to do it on your behalf, and it's not going to be the
100%.
person you want. You have control over the story you want to tell. And I actually think that is a perfect segue into our next segment. Gimme.
Awesome.
Marcus Chan, you ready to do gimme?
Let's go, baby. Let's do it.
All right. So on this show, we have a little bit of a tradition because unfortunately, there is a pernicious myth that exists on LinkedIn, right? So a lot of misconceptions about LinkedIn. People say it's for friendship, it's for, selflessly sharing value and nothing more. But we all know that LinkedIn is actually the only social media network that was created to make money. Yeah, that's right, folks. It was designed so people could post job postings, so you could share your resume, so you could go out there and get new, higher paying opportunities. And so once every episode, I like to pop into character as Boss Bogue, and my guest joins me. And we ask my audience for exactly what it is that we really want from them. So, Marcus, you ready to do Gimme?
100%. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Hello. Welcome to another episode of Gimme, the part of the show where I ask you for money. Marcus Chan, this is LinkedIn. We've got an audience full of sales professionals here. They have money. What are you going to ask them for?
Oh, so first off, I love Boss Book. He's absolutely incredible. So, I have something very cool to give you. And tell you what, if you go for this, every single week I'll give you a brand new free training that'll help you make more money in B2B sales, from filling your pipeline to closing more deals, to closing deals faster. And guess what? It's completely free. So
What?
it's completely free. I'm giving it to you completely free. So you'll see the QR code right there. If you scan the QR code, you can join my newsletter. Every week I'll give you brand new free training, tactical things that will help you make more money for the rest of this year and into 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, if you don't sign up for Marcus Chan's newsletter right now, you are a maniac. Okay? You are an absolute maniac. You are a psychopath, and you disgust me. Okay? This man exceeded quota for 13 years straight. All right? That's not an accident. Let's be clear. Some of you President's Club members out there, you know that you only did that once, right? You had one amazing campaign, and then after that, you got put on a PIP and you got fired. Happens to the best of us, right? Not Marcus Chan. All right. Marcus Chan has been out there doing it forever. He published a book. He's had a successful solo business, which is more than a lot of you solo business owners can say. Get this newsletter right now. This man is not just whistling Dixie. He knows how to do sales. By the way, why don't you buy my shit too? Right? So you're out there, you're getting these opportunities, but you're not showing up well on video. Well, folks, I don't blame you, okay? This stuff is not obvious, right? Maybe you got an MBA from Harvard. They don't teach you how to make prospecting videos. They don't even know what a prospecting video is, okay? But I do. So I have a product that we're going to be watching an infomercial for soon called The Complete Guide to Selling on Video, and it is everything you need to know to successfully prospect for video. Even if you have absolutely no sales training at all, this will start you out with a simple plan to have your first 25 videos shot, filmed, edited, sent on LinkedIn and Gmail, ready to go, ready to drive business at all stages of your pipeline. And I've got a special announcement that I'm just going to tell you for the first time because this is just rolling out. But in 2024, I am rolling out my first ever improv cohort. Right? So everybody out there has been telling me they want to learn the ways of comedy, right? Because I went to Second City and I learned all the ways of comedy writing that they do on Saturday Night Live. And I make all these funny videos effortlessly that drive all this business into my company. And people said, hey, I want to do that too. I want to get out there making cool, fun, entertaining stuff for my brand that is going to drive me business. So I have introduced this cohort. It is starting up next quarter. There's a limited amount of signups available right now, but you are going to get comedy training. We are going to go through script writing, and we are going to help you make your own library of personal, short, entertaining videos to drive business to your company and grow your personal brand. And guess what? It only costs $2.99 if you sign up in December. So these are weekly sessions. You can attend them synchronously or asynchronously. Show up if you want direct feedback. You can get the recordings. You can follow the sessions remotely if you want. There's going to be tons of awesome handouts in there, and it even comes with a 30-minute one-on-one consultation beforehand. So get the improv cohort. You can scan the QR code right there. There's a 14-day money-back guarantee, so you can even change your mind. You're not going to do that because it's the best solution out there. Right, Marcus?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so get ready for that. Marcus, is there anything else you want to ask my audience for while we got him here?
No, scan those QR codes. Go now. Don't wait.
Yeah, so this has been Gimme Gimme. Iggy, roll the tape.
Hello?
Is this Mr. Sherber?
It sure is. What can I help you with, brother?
Hello. You were not expecting this call. Do you have 17 seconds to
Hang
learn
on a
about
second.
Mercifully Short?
Is this a cold call?
I don't know.
You. Never call this number again.
Oh no! Another unsuccessful cold call. You probably don't have time to fuck off.
I got a quota to hit.
Are you spending hours every week cold calling and cold emailing but not seeing results?
There's gotta be a better way.
Introducing the complete guide to selling on video. Whether you're new to sales or a President's Club member, this fast and fun course will teach you to efficiently create short, customized videos that get results. The complete guide to selling on video is not sold in stores. Visit chrisbogue.io and use promo code GimmeGimme to take $50 off while supplies last. Don't delay. Get noticed today.
And we're back with Marcus Chan. So for those of you at home just joining us, today's show is called No Excuses. Marcus Chan is an elite sales trainer, author, and just generally cool guy. He is here talking about mindset, answering your questions about sales. I see we got a lot of great chatter happening in the comments right now. We got Chuck Shaver, we got Bassy, we've got Lynn, Garen. Jump in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from today. We don't know if you're here unless you leave a comment. And Marcus, I want to get more into mindset in this second half. So I've got something I've noticed here that anybody who's spent time on LinkedIn this year has probably noticed. But there's a lot of pessimism out there in the market right now. And it's not even coming from the sales reps. It's coming from their bosses. It's coming from founders. It's coming from reality too. So this past year, we have seen huge cuts in the B2B tech world, right? So you name a giant respected tech company and they've had layoffs. And folks, I'm not an economist out here, but you can figure out the math. If you're selling a tech solution to a company and they lay off 1,000 people, that deal is going to get smaller. There are fewer licenses to sell, so the deals get smaller. Companies bring in less revenue, and the result is cuts, right? So a lot of teams missing quota. Quota attainment is lower than ever. I've seen entire teams cut and replaced with AI solutions. I see sales influencers all over LinkedIn talking about the gloom and doom and what a bloodbath sales was and how it was hard and it's only going to get worse. So, what do you do with that? What do you do when you walk into an organization where you need to get them to achieve at a higher level? And they're going out there every day and they're reading their bosses talk about how hopeless the sales situation out there is for B2B tech and how maybe they should start exploring other solutions because it's just not going to be what it was before ever again. How do you deal with that type of pessimism? How do you turn that around when that's your job?
So great question. And I'm just going to share a quick story. So when I got started in B2B sales, this was in June 2007, right before the 2008 recession. And I was pretty hopeful. First time B2B sales, very excited, joined the company. It was a startup division of a major company. Realized very quickly there was no product market fit. There was no marketing. There was no training. My boss had never done the job before. There was no real tech stack. I had to figure everything out. As I was trying to figure everything out, the recession started to hit. Businesses were literally closing. Like even the territory, I had the smallest and worst territory. And I was very scared. In fact, the news was going crazy, right? Because then once 2008 hit, right, people were losing their homes. Like literally the big bank bailouts were about to happen. Inflation was skyrocketing. And on top of that, like literally unemployment was in the double digits.
Yeah.
Like it was a scary time. And I remember at the time, there was a lot of pessimism on the sales team from leadership all the way up to all my customers, to basically everyone I talked about, in which people basically said, if you had a job, you were lucky. You should be lucky, right? That was kind of like the essence. And it's definitely a mindset of scarcity, of fear. And early on, I bought into it. I sucked it all in. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. This is the worst possible. And I also joined the masses of being miserable, being a victim of struggling, blaming everything. And then I realized it did nothing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized at that point, and if you ever seen a circle of concern versus a circle of control, I think it's a Stephen Covey principle, right? In the circle of concern, you focus on things that you can't control. Mm-hmm. And what happens is the more you focus on it, the more things get worse. So now what happens is every time you hear a piece of news that's negative or you see something that's bad's happening, you're like, yep, I knew it's gotten worse. And what happens is it starts to impact your brain and you get these negative thoughts in your brain. And I call them ants, automatic negative thoughts. And the scary part is once one crawls into your brain, other ants follow it, just like in your house. If you have ant infestation, one follows the other. Before you know it, you have a whole infestation in your house or in your brain. And you're just like, this is the worst possible. Every day is a drag. Everything's terrible. You're just dreading life. And at that point, I started to realize this was not a good situation to be in, right? And this is where I started to really get into reading books and really focusing on myself and really growing, developing. And what was really interesting was I realized very quickly being able to curate success and curate my mind to focus on the right things was wildly important. So I went on first an elimination diet. That was the first thing. So there was things that I personally did. Like I knew that just like it made me feel bad. I was going to stop doing. For example, I mentioned the news thing. Yeah. I knew like I used to drive to work listening to the news, and it was always negative. It was never anything good because that's what sells, unfortunately. So I cut that out. I stopped listening to the news, right? And I replaced it with something else. Like I'm like, what can I replace it with? Okay, I can replace it with books or things that make me learn and grow. So that's what I started doing. right? So first, like, I went to the library and they had books on CD. I literally took the CDs and I burned copies to my iPod at the time because it was back then, and I plugged in my car and I listened to that, right? I started going to looking for like a better tribe, if you will. So attending conferences of people who were also motivated and energized, who didn't want to get stuck in that negativity of news, right? And I started doing these things to basically put myself in a better state. People that are negative at work, I hate to say it, I stopped talking to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like I literally have people on my team that are like, "Hey, why are you working so hard? The economy is bad anyways. We're all bad results anyway." That was what they were just telling me, right? But I refuse. I refuse to let that be my reality, right? I wanted to create a new way of looking at the world. So Steve Jobs calls this his reality distortion field, right?
Yeah.
Creating a bubble around you of how you perceive things. So I started to do different things. Like, okay, for example, I knew when I ate unhealthy, I felt worse the next day. Started eating clean. I knew when I worked out, I felt better. Started working out. I knew when I drank too much, I feel terrible the next day. I started to reduce my drinking at the time. Now I don't drink at all. I started to reduce my drinking, right? I cut out friends that were negative. I only spent time with people that actually brought me up. I started to invest into my mind. I started to work really hard on myself, right? Because like the Jim Rohn quote says is, when you work hard at your job, you make a living. When you work hard on yourself, you make a fortune. That's what I started doing. I started working super hard on myself from when I woke up to when I went to bed. I just worked on myself doing the hard things that no one else is willing to do, right? And
Yeah, that's hard though. Like,
super hard.
I would say I
Oh,
call this
100%.
the valedictorian problem, where I'm like,
Yeah.
look, it's like when the valedictorian is up there giving the speech, and everyone's like, "Look at that, try hard," and they're like, "I could have done that if I tried," and it's like, yeah. The trying is the hard part, guys. Like that's
100%.
it's doing it when you don't feel like it. And for
100%.
me, it was I had a slightly different way to get at this mindset. And again, I'm not putting myself on the same level of you as you, because I know you've been doing a lot of things that I am doing for a lot longer than I have. You know, for me, it was like I was planning for my life to be a certain way, and I was pretty happy just kind of half-assing it through life, and my life kind of fell apart. I thought I was going to be having a family, and instead I got a divorce, and it was this realization of being all alone and not having anyone to blame for anything anymore. You know, I would say, oh, maybe I'll start a show. Maybe I'll write a book. Maybe I'll write comedy. I was on a 3-year creative dry spell before I started my business, by the way. Maybe I'll play saxophone again. You know what? My wife wants to go to a craft fair, so I guess I gotta do that. You know, I guess I can't work on myself. I'm not going to go to the gym today because she wants to go to a dinner party. And it's like, okay, well, you don't have a wife anymore, but I notice you're not at the gym. You know, so maybe you're holding yourself back, Chris, you know, and it was, I have said before that it was like anybody who sees me out here, I'm doing content all the time. I'm running my own business. I'm interviewing cool people on my shows. I wrote a book that I'm trying to get published. I'm like doing all this stuff. And people don't understand. It's just because I lost so hard that I couldn't make excuses for it anymore.
Sure.
And at the same time, I had this weird moment where COVID happened. I kind of accidentally discovered video prospecting, and I like smashed my quota out of the water 2 months early because I was able to get in with all these accounts that my company had been trying to reach for years, you know? And we never could get through to them. They didn't pick up the phone. They didn't answer emails. I got on video and talked straight to them. All of a sudden, it worked, you know? And I was like, oh my God, this video thing is so powerful, but nobody is really doing it yet. And nobody knows what a mess my life is. Like, I know that my marriage just fell apart and I'm really sad and all that, but like, I don't bring that into the sales presentation. My sales presentation is tight and it's rehearsed and it's focused on them. And I know how to walk them through the flow. And all that stuff in my head doesn't matter to them because they're worried about their rental property. They're worried about their kids' tuition. They're worried about all these things that have nothing to do with where my relationship is at or whatever. And then, yeah, I threw caution to the wind and I started my own business. And my parents were like, what? That's insane. And they were right. But at the same time, I was like, you don't understand. Like, I know if I get into enough rooms, if I get enough people to agree to that sales presentation, I'm going to win some percentage of them, you know? And once you know you can win, it changes everything. But yeah, if I looked at my own situation, I probably would have just determined I'm too much of a mess to do this, you know? Now granted, I had this kind of once in a lifetime moment. I had this perfect little timing moment where all of a sudden all my video skills, all my performance skills, all my coaching skills aligned with the needs of the moment and fit nicely into this niche of sales that fortunately people have not gotten curious enough about yet. You know, what exactly makes a good video?
But I think you bring up a good point, Chris, which is I think it's what's actually very similar to our stories is I didn't share it in detail, but you hit a point in your life where like, this is like, oh my God, what's going on? Like rock bottom is probably how it felt, right?
Yeah.
And that caused you to make a change, even if before if you felt like you didn't have these skills or whatever, but you're like, this is rock bottom for me. I had the same thing, right? It just happened early in my career. Like for me, that specific moment was me struggling several months in, haven't closed a single deal. The things getting way worse, and I knew I was in a very serious relationship. A girl I wanted to propose to, want to marry. Her parents are pretty prestigious. I knew they just knew I was some sales guy. I didn't want to fail them. I went against my parents going in sales, and I didn't want to fail them either. And then suddenly, a few months in, I'm getting threatened to get fired. When's about to be the recession. And at this point, it was at that moment, that pivotal moment, I realized I can keep having excuses. I can keep saying, I don't have the skills. It's the economy. It's product market fit. It's my bad boss. I don't have good leads. I don't have a tech stack. I don't have whatever. And I said, those all might be true. That might be my circumstance, but it doesn't determine where I want to go. And I was clear on my future, on where I wanted to go. And at that point, that's when I made a shift. And it wasn't overnight the results. I think mistakes some people say like, oh, it must have been overnight. Like, yeah, some stuff had some overnight results, but who I was, not overnight. It was like literally, I probably didn't even realize it till probably like 8 years later. Like 8 years later, I'm like, oh, wow, I'm actually a whole new person. And I had no idea at that point because I was so into building myself and working myself every single day. Because every day is hard. Like every day, the feelings of imposter syndrome, of doubt, anxiety still hit me. Even as I start climbing up the ladder, making good results, even as people are like, wow, you're getting promoted, doing all these crazy things, you're hitting all these awards, like you must have it all together. I'm like, no, I'm like a duck. Am I like calm on the surface, but underneath the water, it's a mess. And that's how I felt. And I didn't even realize it to that point until literally 2016. And literally I got promoted again. And I was leading a region of 85 people. And people were saying like, how did you do this? I'm like, do what? Like, how did you get promoted 12 times in the last 8 years? How have you won every single award? How have you hit quota every single year? How have you like done all these things? I'm like, what do you mean? It's super hard for me every day. Every day it's hard to win every year. Every year the number goes up. Every year is hard. Like every day is hard, right? And I realized it's all those little things I've been doing to lead to that point that was leading to these type of results. So I think it's such a good question, but it's never goes away. You got to earn it every single day. I'm a firm believer.
People need to understand this though. So it's like that saying about exercise, like it never gets easy. You just get better.
100%. 100%.
And yeah, and it's one of those things where and like I read your book, I've read the criticisms of your book too. And the criticisms, they all think it's too easy for you. You know, they
right.
And like this is the irony about giving sales advice too, is like I like to think I have a pretty unique background at the very least, right? Like I've leaned into I learned early on, like you want to lean into what's different about you. For your personal marketing. So like I've leaned into the comedy. I've leaned into a lot of the things that I know other people don't have, and including the video, right? So I just talk a lot about like, where do you put the lights? Where do you put the camera? Stuff that they don't explain in sales training.
Right.
But at the end of the day, if you read a sales training book today and you read a sales training book from the 1950s, they're not that different. It's like actually sales remains astonishingly the same. No matter what kind of breakthroughs come out there, you always need to have some sort of disruption, right? There's always some point where the other person wants to carry on their merry way doing the exact same thing they did yesterday, and some sort of outside force needs to interrupt them, steal a little bit of their attention, and pull them into an interaction that blossoms into something larger.
Mhm.
And it's like that is always how it's been. And
Mhm.
it's funny because every time people are like, "Oh, sales is harder than ever these days," there was never a time where people didn't say that. You know,
It's always been
when
hard.
you started out, when you started in the recession, that was when I was graduating college.
Yeah,
Um, they said the same thing then too. And you know
I
what?
know.
They're going to say the same thing next year. They're going to say the same thing 5 years from
That's
now.
right.
It's never going to be easy because there's a part of it that's always unnatural. There's always
Well,
that other
on
person.
top of that,
Yeah.
you're dealing with human beings,
Yeah.
right? Human beings are unpredictable, right? That's just a reality. So it's like when you deal with human beings, you're basically trying to influence someone outside of you to do something, or multiple people in a complex situation. So anytime that's going to be the case, that's never really going to be easy, right? Like the tactics may change, the strategies might change, but at the end of the day, you're dealing with human beings, right? So that's why it's always going to be hard until
And
you start learning some things that actually make sense for dealing with human behavior.
this is the thing I tell people that upsets them. I did a whole episode on it with Heidi Briones once, but I'm like, hey, here's actually the hardest part of sales. You have to annoy people. And if you meet a
I'd be okay with it.
salesperson who says they've never annoyed anybody,
Yeah.
they're lying to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And I can
And
tell
you have to
you
be
that.
okay with it. You have to be mentally okay with it too, right?
And I tell them,
Yeah.
I'm like, look, you know who annoys me? My fucking alarm clock,
Mhm.
right? Like,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
nothing more annoying
Mhm.
than when it's like, hey, it's time to get up and you want to keep
Mhm.
sleeping.
Yeah.
Like, it is just doing its job,
Mhm.
right? The fact that I am annoyed by it does not mean that I want to stop using my alarm clock. Like, I
That's right.
need it because it needs to be annoying enough to get me out of bed when I would rather sleep.
Mhm.
So if you are a salesperson, you are always going to have to deal with someone being annoyed by your outreach, annoyed by your phone
Right.
call, annoyed by your cold email, annoyed by your LinkedIn content. Like,
Right.
if you are trying to do sales or if you're trying to run your own business without ever annoying someone by being too salesy, it's not going to happen.
That's right.
It's just not. Like,
You gotta
this
lean towards discomfort. You'll never make 100% people happy. Never.
the way I look at it is, and maybe this is where we're kind of like converging here, and how I get
Sure.
people over mindset is
Mm.
like, you have to disconnect yourself
Mhm.
from the outcome.
Yep.
And my thing, and we can talk here at the end of the episode about starting a business, because this is something that I've done. This is something you've done quite successfully. I've seen a lot of my friends who are content creators who quit their jobs and they're like, well, I want more time to relax and spend with my family, so I'm going to start my own business. And I don't have the heart to tell them, guys, it's a lot more work starting your own business.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
as annoying as a boss may be, having a salary to rely on makes things easier. Um, it's a real wake up call when all of a sudden the only money you make is money that you ask for. You
Mhm.
know,
Right.
if you stop working, like if I stop working for a week, if I slack off for a week, I'm gonna fall 3 weeks behind. You know, if
Mhm.
if I if I just don't feel like showing up for a month, I'm gonna fall 3 months behind. You know,
Mhm.
um, if I'm not always putting stuff in the pipeline, um, if those things, those nice to haves, disappear on me, I am up the creek. I need to make sure, like, the sales process takes weeks or months. You always
Mhm.
have to be putting it out there. And yeah, that's my thing that I tell people with entrepreneurship is, I'm like, look, I was a speech team kid, and speech team is like, you go up in front of a bunch of hungover college kids who are judging you when you're in high school. And if you make it to the final round, you get 3 judges, right? There's usually like 3 prelim rounds, then there's a
Mhm.
final round. And everybody who has ever won a speech tournament has experienced the same thing. You go into a finals round, and there's 3 judges. One gives you a 1, one gives you a 3, and one gives you a 6. And I go, those 3 people all watched the exact same performance. in front of the exact same audience. One of them thought you were the absolute best. One of them thought you were the absolute worst. One of them thought you were just in the middle, right? The trick I am finding to entrepreneurship is how can you constantly put yourself in front of those judges that are going to give you a 1? You know, and for me, it's been a matter of being like, okay, maybe this person rejected me. Maybe they were like kind of mean, like kind of hurt my feelings. That's the judge that gave me a 6, you know, so it's not their fault. And like, certainly I'm going to take their feedback, you know, if like, I'm always listening to feedback, you want to get better. But the trick is not to give up. I'm not going to give up and sulk because, oh, this person thought I was the worst. That next person I talked to today might have me as the 1. Like, it could literally be 20 minutes from now. I talk to the next
100%.
person and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing that your timing is perfect. I literally just had a meeting with my team that we need to do more video. I send them it's the easiest close on earth. But yeah, I've kind of had to disconnect myself emotionally from those 6s and just say, you know what? You're going to find the judge that gives you the 6, no matter how good you are. Someone said to me once, you could be the sweetest peach on earth. There are some people who just don't like peaches.
It's true. 100%, man. 100%. You know, I say there's a 10, I call it the 10-10-80 rule, right? Like 10% of people you talk to will never buy.
Yeah.
Regardless of how great you are, no matter how amazing it is, no matter how well it lines, just not going to do it. Yeah. 10% will always buy. So regardless, like you do a decent enough job, like it's a pretty good fit, they'll probably buy. That's probably why even the worst reps have at least a 8 to 10% closing ratio, right? Then there's a middle 80. They can go either way. Just depends on how good you are in your whole process and how well you can align to what their needs, how well you multi-thread. So the key is, you know, forget about those 10%. They'll forget about you, that you don't win. Forget about the ones that you're going to win anyways. Move that middle 80 as much as you can and learn from them. So even if you lose those deals, how can you improve your process? How can you get better for the next call?
Awesome. I want to bring up Kyle's point. Kyle, thank you for sharing this. I'll let you start with this, Marcus. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? It seems like it comes in and out of our lives. I know this is something I see people on LinkedIn talk about all the time. What do you think about imposter syndrome, and what do you use to get over it during those moments where you feel like, oh my God, I'm a fraud?
So I think it's a very real thing. I mean, I get it. I get it every day, realistically, right? It hits me every day. Can I really be doing this? Should I go back to corporate? And I might cut out for this. Can I be an entrepreneur? And I've been doing it for 4 years now, right? When I was in B2B sales, same thing. It happened all the time, right? So I think it's very, very normal. A few things that personally has helped me, and hopefully will help you, Kyle, and everyone else listening out there is, I always find whenever we get these negative thoughts like this, what can we control to position ourselves to feel best about ourselves? Like I always find like what's controllable. So for example, like this is kind of out there, but like the better sleep you get, the better you feel, the less likely you are to get impacted by negative thoughts. Sounds crazy, but the reality is getting a good night's sleep can really help you control your thoughts a little bit better, right? Eating properly, same thing. I hate to say it, but when you eat really unhealthy foods and it's sitting, you're not feeling great, feeling bloated, you are more susceptible to negative thoughts like imposter syndrome, right? Even with moving, just exercising. If you don't move and you're sedentary all day, you don't get that blood flow, you are more prone to just these type of thoughts, right? So first off, it's controlling what you can control, those type of things, right? Also, I find it hits me heavily if I allow myself to compare. So if I'm suddenly like scrolling the feed and I'm getting hit with ads on Instagram, I'm like, hey, I did X, I did like $10 million in 3 days doing this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm a failure, right? Those blocking the feed, just curating that stuff out. Don't pay attention to that. That stuff hurts you quite a bit, right? So all those things are going to be like, you want to eliminate and add the things that are going to help serve you. But also on top of that, it's creating the habits of taking action even when you don't feel like it, and breaking it down to specific things you can do each single day so you can do those things, right? So for example, if you are, I know you're in sales, Kyle, but if you're doing imposter, maybe a new role. But if you reverse calculate your numbers, hey, each day in order to hit my OTE, I need to make at least 20 calls a day based off my conversion metrics. Building that in your calendar and just making a habit to do those things regardless of how you feel, building that habit, it's going to help you minimize it. Doesn't mean it'll go away, but it helps you consistently kind of push through. Now, on top of that, one key thing is like similar to mention similar to I mentioned before, like reading case studies, etc. You need to train your mind to think about how have you been successful each day. So for example, I recommend like a daily win journal. Every day, write down what's one win, one learning from the day. When you start training, you ask yourself that kind of question. It's amazing. Even if you have the worst days, like, well, my one win is, hey, you know what? I chose to do 20 calls. I made the calls anyways. That's pretty good.
Ooh, see,
You know?
I've got a couple opposite hacks
Sure,
there,
yeah.
Kyle. If
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
interested,
Yeah.
so I actually kind of do the reverse of the not worrying about the people out there who are like, I made $10 million with this one weird trick. I
Yeah.
look at the opposite, and like this is what I do a lot in my coaching too, where people they're afraid to put something out there because they're afraid it's not good enough.
Mhm.
I'm like, look at all the absolute morons out there
Mhm.
who are building an audience. If somebody is out there with absolute idiocy and they're doing well for themselves,
Mhm.
why can't you go out there and say something
It's true.
intelligent? Like, why can't you go out there and try? And then the other thing too, those opportunities that you were just going to win anyway, those are actually motivating for me. And I had a guest on a couple weeks ago,
Love
Juma
it.
Bannister, and he had a great quote that I've been thinking about a lot this past month. And he says, there are some opportunities in life that to win, you merely need to be present.
Mhm.
There are just opportunities where the only reason you won is because you showed up and no one else did.
Mhm.
And I think about this like growing up. I get scared on roller coasters, and I would sit there and I'd be in high school and I'd be like trying to impress girls and be like, yeah, I'd go on the roller coaster. And when I needed some courage, I would look down the line and I would see some 10-year-old kid, who's just totally fearless, and I would say,
Mhm.
okay, little 10-year-old kid is going to go on this roller coaster. It's not going to kill me if I did the same thing, and
Love
it's
it.
like, yeah, I look at it like, hey, I got to go out there every single day. Obviously, I'm going to scrap and I'm going to do everything I can to win those hard fought battles. And that's what sales is all about. But at the same time, there's literally people sitting out there being like, oh, we got to pay someone for video coaching right now.
Mhm.
And like, if all I did was reach out to them today, that would be easy money because nobody else is doing it. I know for a fact,
Mhm.
I've surveyed enough of my network to know these B2B companies are not doing video prospecting, right?
Mhm.
None of it, even the ones paying for
Oh, yeah, they're not.
solutions, they're
Yep.
they're doing 5 custom videos a month at best. If I
Mhm.
just show up, I will win a percentage. But that requires me to show up, And again,
Mhm.
as if
Mhm.
you've taken one thing away from this interview today, everybody, showing up is often the hardest part. So,
100%.
Marcus, I love having you on the show. Unfortunately, we have reached the end of today. We are out of time. So let's just go here one more time for anybody who is joining us late today. If people like what you're saying, if they want to check out your newsletter, your coaching offerings, or just more Marcus Chan, where should they go to find more Marcus Chan?
Awesome. You can find me on LinkedIn or YouTube. Just look up my name or head over to benleyconsulting.com. You can access all the free resources there as well. It's been a pleasure, my man. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks everybody at home. If you missed it, go ahead, scan the QR code right there to subscribe to Marcus's newsletter. I'll give you a minute. If you forget how to do it, you take out your phone, right? You switch it to camera, and then in camera mode, you just hold it right up there, and that'll take you straight to it. So I'm going to give everyone a moment to do that. And yeah, in the meantime, too, you can find me. I'm Chris Bogue. Follow me on LinkedIn. Be sure to ring the bell, follow, connect. I'm friendly. I'm a social guy. Connect with me. I'd love to connect with you. You can check out my coaching offerings, my courses, and everything that I sell at chrisbogue.io. And if you want to listen to previous episodes of the show, go to Spotify or Apple or wherever you get podcasts and search for Chris Sells His Soul. You can find all past episodes there. So thank you very much. Say bye, Marcus.